Hello and welcome to the Open Book channel. My name is Oleander, your designated open book, and today I wanted to use the Britt Andrews situation to discuss publishing practices. My video on Audra Winter was well received, and so I thought people would be interested in getting my take on Britt Andrews too. I will be providing a quick catch-up on events, not going into too much detail, just enough that I can discuss the lesson that I think that we should all take away from it. The YouTube account Book Lover Laura has been keeping vigilant and constantly updating on the situation. She's how I learned about Britt Andrews in the first place, so if you want more details, check out her series. She also goes into responses from fans and particulars on legal proceedings, which I will not be doing here. Britt Andrews is inarguably a very successful author, best known for her Emerald Lake series. She was invited to and spoke at book events where she's presented on being such a successful indie author. However, as it turns out, Andrews has a long history of a lack of accountability and controversy, from announcing books that have never been heard of again, including a canceled pre-order, failing a different, overpriced Kickstarter, not delivering physical products of other signed books at events and through mail order, canceling appearances at signings which people had books to see her at, promising refunds which people seem to have never gotten even a year after, and deleting negative comments regarding complaints on her socials. It's a pretty bad track record, and not to victim blame, but her fans probably should have seen this coming. But most recently, and what's gotten the most attention, Andrews came under review by the community for her behaviors after mismanaging a Kickstarter for special hardbacks of a duet plus bonus items that managed to raise $95,000. And it's important to note this Kickstarter was started while there was still customers left unfulfilled from other projects. As you can imagine, after everything I just listed, deadlines on this $95,000 Kickstarter were not met as promised, and the means of providing backers with their benefits unclear. Andrews ghosted for months at a time, and every update was more concerning as it seemed that the state of the manuscript and benefits were further from completion than even originally presented in the pitch. Allegedly, backers had been lied to and were left hanging. On top of that, after announcing such exclusivity for the pre-release of the duet, of which she had not yet written the second book, it was reopened, you could say. She was extending things with another form on a different site, providing access outside of the Kickstarter to get the very special exclusive thing. Which, again, the book still wasn't even written. That act, though, betrayed the exclusivity of the Kickstarter in the first place, and did nothing but to add more to the pile of things that she has unfulfilled. As time went on, Andrew's attention on the Kickstarter projects grew increasingly divided. There were multiple pushbacks on dates with no tangible progress. Andrews announced personal struggles from death in the family to dealing with a divorce, which are difficult, but those things don't absolve her of taking people's money for a product she was nowhere close to supplying. Fans were understanding at first, until more information came to light about her personal life, and disgruntled backers kept going unaddressed. Andrews announced buying and running a restaurant, which in and of itself is a division of her attention to being an author, but is not condemnable. Authors obviously have other aspects of their lives, but then it was leaked that she was doing a large kitchen reno and was in legal trouble for not paying the contractors, and then the restaurant business failed too. As much as these things are not book-related, they showed her character as divided and continuously overcommitting. It begged the question of when she'd have the time to write the book her fans had already paid for. Why was she committing to more things on top of already not being able to supply previous projects' benefits? Why was it taking so long in the first place, as many readers from other projects hadn't received book deliveries for years? And with the failed restaurant and unpaid renos, people were speculating that the Kickstarters were allegedly a scam, that the Kickstarter money had been used elsewhere, and Andrews did not have the means to complete the Kickstarter's physical benefits anymore, let alone provide refunds to all of the people that actively were asking for them. It has since been revealed that the other small businesses and peoples who were announced to be working with her on the Kickstarter have also been ghosted and consequently dropped out. The candle company, which Andrews had announced she'd be working with for one of the rewards, post-year delay, gave transparency receipts showing that they'd never even gotten to a planning process. People who requested refunds when the deadline for the Kickstarter was just straight up way too far past were treated as impatient and negative. Many were blocked from commenting when all they wanted was more information and, rightfully, their money back. Andrews repeatedly obfuscated the process of delivery and the ability to supply refunds, which people still did not get, presumably because the money for the Kickstarter was spent. Andrews continued to give sporadic months-apart updates, affirming her intent to complete the goals while ignoring people's concerns, providing no transparency on funds or deadlines, and essentially holding people's money hostage by not providing refunds to those who ask, despite insisting anyone who wanted one would get their money back. The duet that had not even been written at the time of the successful pre-sale Kickstarter just released. Now, years late and only digitally, the reception of the book has been negative, not just because people are disgruntled by the wait, but that the writing of the book doesn't live up to the previous releases she's done either. There is still no knowing when or if Andrews will now begin the process and fulfillment of all of the physical rewards, i.e. publishing the physical book on top of all the other trinkets which she'd previously been so woefully unprepared to supply. This is a classic case of an author behaving badly on many fronts, but the big kicker, pun intended, as to why this gained so much traction was the actual numbers behind the Kickstarter. $95,000 funded a successful Kickstarter project for an indie author. That's huge. Aside from Brandon Sanderson, it's kind of unheard of. It's not that indie book Kickstarters don't ever get funded, but it's that much money was spent on the promise of a book that wasn't even written yet. Most of us will never earn that much in our whole career of writing, let alone on a yet non-existent pre-sale. I do not know Britt Andrews as an author. I've never read her books, so her previous series very well may have been that good, to have inspired such a large and loyal fan base. But it's hard for little old me to fathom. I think that's the sentiment that a lot of fellow indie authors have around this drama, that not only did Andrews have this level of renown, but that she squandered it, abused it. As I have commented on before in videos, I think that levels of mismanagement and overpromising are more than a personal failing because on a big enough stage, it becomes damaging to the reputation of indie publishing and causes distrust in its fan base, which is small enough already. Everything I've said about Britt Andrews is public information. Her intentions are unknown, but the facts of the Kickstarter's execution are not alleged, and neither are the ways in which she's handled business. Given the track record, lack of accountability or planning, and her response types, many spectators consider Andrews a scammer. Currently, grievances have hit a point where they cannot ever truly be recovered, so that's not untrue. Even if someday Andrews did deliver everything in some capacity, it's far too late and cannot be what was promised. In my personal opinion, even if someone has the purest intentions, if they propose something with no solid means at that time to fulfill it, then yes, that is closer to a scam. Big dreams are not the same as business plans, and to treat them as such is negligent. An outright scam is to promise a product with no intent to supply, or to lie about its quality. And I think Andrews has to fall somewhere on that scale. As an author as big as she is, if it wasn't a scam, then she should have known better, or ever taken accountability for the false promises. But I didn't make this video to speculate on the intentions of Britt Andrews. I wanted to present the situation so you could understand the complexity of it, and so when I say what I'm about to say next, you don't think I've just oversimplified everything, or that I'm unaware of how deep this goes. Because, oh, I know. Forgetting all the extra mismanagement and tack-ons, what this comes down to is investment in an unwritten book. Authors need to stop doing it to themselves, setting themselves up for failure, and fans need to stop expecting more than they reasonably should. We saw it in the case of Audra Winter too. Winter may have overpromised quality in her book's editing, but realistically, fans had no tangible proof of the quality of her writing to expect more from a debut author. And Winter herself shouldn't have pushed through the process of publishing when the book wasn't ready just because the demand was there. In the case of Britt Andrews, this was far less excusable. She had a reputation and a successful career already. It was not as much of a stretch for her fans to place their bets in her supplying the product she promised, because she had work to show beforehand. But even in that, those are other books, finished books. This Kickstarter was exaggerated. The wording Andrews used implied that the book was already underway, only for following updates to reveal that it was not close to publication or more likely even started. I don't think it's on the fans of Andrews' other books to have been able to discern those false implications. I don't think it's on the fans to have known better, or need to be involved enough in any author's previous exploits to have expected as much, since there is a track record. The reason this has gotten to such an extreme is because by Kickstarter guidelines, backing something, that's just the risk that you take. But I think this tendency to overinvest in books that have not warranted it isn't just an indie problem. Traditional publishing does it too. They decide which books will be successful before their release, and planning how much marketing they're going to put behind it, but also, look at the Luke Bateman situation. He got a traditional 2-book deal for absolutely nothing. He's a book talker, but that doesn't make him a writer. He hadn't even written anything, let alone had an idea of what those books were going to be. There was no pitch to even warrant the investment. So, as much as it dismays me to say it, because I want fans to trust in indie enough to invest in us, we need to stop overcommitting within reason. I believe we should have good faith, but that still needs to be earned. Numbers do not equate quality, and the size of dreams do not make them come true. In my opinion, no one but the author or their agency should be investing in a book that is not done yet. Again, ideas are not execution. I think Britt Andrews did a great disservice to her fans and community. Her actions are numerous enough that it's fair to assume ill intent, with the extent that she overpromised. But in general, I think people need to step back and be more selective. It's ironic because I would love for people to take a risk on me, but that requires trust, and if indie keeps making scandals like this, then there will be none left to go around to those who do deserve it. I want people to invest in me, but I also intend to earn it, so I'm presenting this tale with an emphasis on caution. At the very least, we need to stop investing in books that are not complete and have not shown their merit. I know that publishing is a business, and so traditional is going to chase profits, but in an ideal world, creative spaces should be a meritocracy. Writers who are in it for the craft and readers who are passionate about the stories, we need to vote with our dollar so trad slop and indie grifters can't actually benefit enough for those things to make it worth continuing to do. And the only way to guarantee that is to support products we can verify the integrity of. If we want quality, we don't just need to be vocal in fallouts like this. We need to be conscious enough to prevent them. If that Kickstarter never got funded and people didn't keep throwing money at Andrews for add-ons at every new stretch goal with no actual plans, then it wouldn't have been a $100,000 publishing scandal. Now would it? The answer I'm proposing is not to be so skeptical that we do not support indie at all. I would love to see more indie authors fulfilling their Kickstarter projects. I don't want them to have a harder time with that because it's more than hard enough as it already is. But at the same time, it is only ever going to get harder too, with book scandals like this on such a rise. So, moral of the story, let's be conscientious. Invest within reason. Reserve your excitement for tangible things that do exist and deserve it. Hype is killing merit, so we need to demand merit before supplying hype. That's all. Do you agree? What do you think about the Britt Andrews situation or the state of indie publishing in general right now? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments. This is probably all a hot take, but As somebody that doesn't pay a lot for many books ever, the overinvestment that people are putting in books that don't exist is crazy to me. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.